How do I know when I'm oxalate dumping now, almost 2 years into my carnivore journey? Let's chat about that. Hi there, my name is Sue. If you haven't visited my channel before, I have been on the carnivore diet for probably coming up 22 months now, and so I talk lots about the carnivore diet, what I'm doing and my journey, and I've done a few videos in the past about oxalate dumping because I went through some absolute misery with oxalate dumping. So if you haven't checked those out, go back and check those out. I will pop links to those below this video. Now I've got one of my new t-shirts on. It's got my website on there, meetmydiet.com. I've ordered a couple of t-shirts just recently off my Spreadshirt shop, which the link is below, so you can go and check out my designs there. And I'm really happy with them. They're the first ones that I've actually ordered from them. They took only 2 weeks, 13 or 14 days to get to New Zealand, which I was quite impressed because, I mean, I am in New Zealand. It's kind of on the other side of the world, so that wasn't too bad. And so I got this one. Hubby got a shirt as well with hashtag proper human diet on it, and I also got this one. This is my favorite design that I've done, and I love this color of this shirt. It's a long sleeved t-shirt, and it's life just wouldn't be the same without butter. I really like that design, and I had really been wanting to order one of those for ages, and so I got it. The fabrics and the quality of these shirts I'm really happy with. They're really nice and soft, and they're quite kind of scrummy. So if you want to check those out, they're below my videos. Now, almost 2 years into my carnivore journey, my oxalate dumping symptoms have changed somewhat. In the past, I had lots of diarrhea, lots and lots of diarrhea, and even prior to carnivore, diarrhea was an issue for me for decades. Okay, so I had chronic IBS diarrhea, but the oxalate dumping made my diarrhea worse. And so I had also had a lot of kind of body pain. I had vulvodynia, and it would also increase my anxiety as well. So the vulvodynia was something that I also had prior to carnivore, and so I knew that I had an issue with oxalate before going onto the carnivore diet, but I didn't really know much about oxalate. I just knew it was a thing. I realized that I kind of had it because I had this vulvodynia thing going on, and I knew that if I ate beetroot, it made it flare up. That was basically as much as I knew prior to starting on carnivore. But once I started on carnivore and everything just got so much worse, I started digging more into it. I read Sally Norton's book on oxalates, and I have a link to that book below. It's a really good read. If oxalates are an issue for you and you want to understand them, I would go and get a copy of that book and read it. So back in the beginning of my carnivore journey, once I started oxalate dumping in earnest, it was almost constant. I would sometimes have 2 or 3 days in between, and then it would be back again with a vengeance. And I just really didn't think it was ever going to stop because it was just this consistent thing that kept happening. There are different ways to help manage oxalate dumping. For me, like back then when it was really bad, I didn't really find that they made a whole lot of difference. Things like keeping some oxalate in your diet, so that can be green tea, it can be black pepper, spices like cinnamon, keeping a little bit of sweet potato or something in your diet. I tried potato at one stage, which I think did help. So the other way to help with oxalate dumping, something that seems to be really essential, it was in my case, was taking some kind of electrolyte product. And a lot of people use a product like Element. For me, I actually use these trace ocean minerals. So I really like this product. I talk about it quite a lot in my videos. To me, it makes sense to use this product because it's made from ocean water. It contains not only the major electrolytes, but it contains all the trace minerals as well. And so for me, it just seems like a more balanced natural product, and so I really like it. And if I need anything extra, I just add some Celtic sea salt to that as well. And I've found that was really, really good. That company used to have a powdered version, and I used to take that with me everywhere. If I went shopping, I would have it in the car with me because sometimes I would just not feel great and I'd have to pop some in my water and drink it while I was out there on the go, because my oxalate dumping was so bad that it just was really playing havoc with my electrolyte balance. And the reason for that is that the oxalates bind things like magnesium and calcium, and so they can kind of put things out of balance. So why was my oxalate accumulation so bad? People might actually wonder that. And, basically my body was the perfect storm for oxalate kind of accumulation, because I'd had gut issues pretty much all my life. I had leaky gut. I now actually don't think my gallbladder was working properly, probably pretty much all my adult life. And so that creates a situation where oxalate can get become more of an issue and accumulate more in the body. And then, like I had decades of really high plant-based eating. So I was vegetarian for over a decade. I was vegan for a couple of years solid, and then I kept kind of going back to a vegan diet. Even once I started eating meat again, I would stop eating meat and I'd go back to this raw vegan diet. And I was consuming lots of green smoothies with lots of spinach and almonds and chia seeds and raspberries and cacao and all of these things. And I'd have buckwheat porridge for breakfast covered in cinnamon and raspberries, and so all of these foods are super high in oxalate, and that was my diet for years. So I was consuming massive amounts of oxalates with this really damaged digestive system that just wasn't working properly. And so my body obviously stored a lot of oxalate because I was consuming far more than I could handle. I mean, even when I think back, like even just before Carnivore, hubby and I were having these ceremonial cacao drinks every night. I'd kind of taken a fancy to that because I was selling these cacao products in my clinic and buying them wholesale, and they have this amazing, like, huge 1 kilo blocks of ceremonial cacao. And so we were making a drink with that every night, which was absolutely delicious, with a bit of honey or whatever, and enjoying that, because it's really high in magnesium, and so it's really good for you, right? The magnesium in it probably can't be used because of the amount of oxalate that's in there, but I didn't know that at the time. And so we were having that every night because it tasted really good. And the buckwheat porridge that I mentioned before, I mean, that was a staple for me for a long, long time. Either cooked buckwheat porridge or raw sprouted buckwheat porridge, because I was gluten-free for years, and so buckwheat was a huge part of my diet, and it's really high in oxalate. So what sort of symptoms do I have now with the oxalate dumping? After 2 years on the carnivore diet, things are finally settling down, and it's kind of harder to tell when I'm oxalate dumping. But I usually eventually click that that's what it is, because, for example, I was oxalate dumping just a couple of days ago, and I'm on a high-fat carnivore diet at the moment. I've been on it for about 2.5 weeks, and so I've been feeling really good, apart from my bowel being upset because of the higher fat. The rest of me has been feeling good, really, like, mentally happy and feeling great. My mental health has been amazing. And then all of a sudden I woke up the other morning and I was sore. I was lying in bed and everything was hurting, and my arms were burning, my shoulders and my arms were burning, and I'm thinking to myself, why the hell am I so sore? And so I got up out of bed, and the rest of my body kind of eventually settled down, but my shoulders and my arms stayed really quite sore, and the burning in my muscles. I was like, thinking to myself, why am I sore? I've been feeling so good. What's happened? And then when I was cooking breakfast and I was kind of thinking about this, I was thinking, what have I done? Why is my body hurting? And then I remembered what Sally Norton says in her book, that she knows when she's going to start oxalate dumping these days, because she feels amazing for the couple of days prior. She gets to a point where she's just feeling so good, and she knows the oxalate dumping is coming, because then it just goes. And that's basically what happened to me. Like, I had been feeling good, and then I had a couple of days where I just felt amazing. Like the day before all this body pain, I just felt on top of the world, felt so good. And I was just like, man, I could live like this for the rest of my life. I'm not used to feeling like this. It's so good. And then, boom, into the oxalate dumping. And so for me, it only happens probably about once a month now, I think. You know, if I think back to how often it's been happening, it's probably once a month, once every 6 weeks. So it's becoming, you know, less and less. But recognizing it when it happens is a little bit tricky sometimes. So thinking back to the last time that I was oxalate dumping, which was probably about a month or so ago, I'd had this funny pain in my left breast, like right inside it. And I was like, I wonder what's kind of going on there. And I kind of suspected oxalate because I've had oxalate crystals coming out of my breasts. If you've not seen that video, I'll pop a link to that. Really interesting thing that happened to me one day and has been happening ever since, off and on, but just they've been getting smaller and smaller and less. But yeah, that first time there was lots of crystals and they were a reasonable size and they just looked like little quartz crystals that came out of my boobs. Surprised me as much as it's probably surprising you. So yeah, check that video out. But yeah, nowadays it's more subtle. So the last time I had that pain in my left breast, and then might have been the day after, I had a little bit of vulvodynia. So not like I used to get it, but just it was kind of less spread out, if that makes sense. I don't know quite know how to say that. But yeah, there was definitely some pain still there. So I thought, oh yeah, that is what this is. It's oxalate dumping. The vulvodynia always confirms it for me. If that happens, then I know that it's oxalate dumping for sure. But it seems to, like, looking back, that what just happened is kind of becoming a little bit of a pattern as well, because I think it happened last time too, is that, you know, I just start feeling better and better and better, and then all of a sudden, boom. But the better was way better this time, I think, on this high-fat carnivore diet. And it's funny because hubby and I seem to be in sync with this oxalate dumping, which is an interesting thing. It's funny how humans, you know, that live in the same house actually end up in sync with things. It's like women with their menstrual cycles. He got up the same day as me and was really sore. He'd been feeling really good the day before, and then he was sore. And it's interesting because, you know, even though he's still eating some sourdough bread, but that's just made with white flour, so there's not a whole lot of oxalate in that. And he eats a little bit of like mango and blueberries now. I've got him off the banana, and he's having blueberries. It's kind of slowly with this guy. So he's not consuming a whole lot of oxalate, and so he's doing some dumping as well. And yeah, that day we were both sore because he's saying, I'm sore as well, and I'm like, I think that we are oxalate dumping at the same time. I think we're in sync. That's what it seems like. So this is the thing, is I figure that the oxalate dumping, it'll become less and less over time and further apart, and it will become harder to kind of recognize that that's what it is. But, you know, when you've been feeling so good and then you wake up so sore just one day randomly without really changing anything, it kind of makes you go, huh, what's happening? And then you eventually realize that it's oxalate dumping. So as I said, if you want to understand more about oxalate dumping, grab a copy of Sally's book. The link is below. It's a really good read and will really help you to understand what's going on in your body and why, and how to manage it, because there are different strategies that she has in there to help manage it. Although I found that when it was really bad, there wasn't a whole lot that really helped. But that's one of the reasons that I keep the green tea in at the moment. So I started drinking the green tea when I was on Dr. Davis's protocol, and I've kept it in there because green tea, I'm enjoying it for a start, but also it contains some oxalate. So I kind of figure that that probably helps to limit my oxalate dumping. And I'll use a little bit of black pepper maybe once a day, and that's about it. So yeah, link to Sally's book below, and if you've got any comments or questions, pop them below and I will get to them as soon as I can. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, and I thank you very much for watching and listening to me, and I will talk to you again another day. Bye.